All right, welcome to Quests, the feature preview on Loka. Mag gave a little bit of a sort of rundown on what to expect. It could be buggy, but it is what we've been working on for, oh, good lord, at
A
least.
while.
I mean, I don't think it's a full year, but basically we started on Quests in the middle of last year, and we tabled it for some stuff. But we're ready to finally get after it. Quests, if you're not familiar, is effectively Jobs 2.0. So, I have a bullet point list this time because we've done feature previews in the past where I kind of ramble, and I'd like to be a little more organized about it. So, what is there to know about Quests? Well, the reason that we're doing Quests now and we're releasing it now is because on Sunday, the 14th of February, not the 14th, 16th of February rather, is the 9-year Loka anniversary. The server is 1 year short of 10 years old, which is crazy. It's
It'll
absolutely
be a true
nuts.
boomer at that point.
Yeah. What way to bring it back, Mag? Way to go. I like that. That's a good one. And so what Quests is meant to be is obviously the next iteration of Jobs. But its first sort of iteration is that it's going to be feature parity with Jobs for the most part. That's what it's intended to do. There's a lot to Quests because it's a questing system, and there is questing plugins on other servers and everything. It's a system inherently designed to be able to do anything, and as you might imagine, that's quite difficult to do. So what it's meant to do at first is make sure that it can do almost everything Jobs can do, but way better. We will show you soon what it can do, but we just want to make sure that you realize this is a feature preview. Things are going to be buggy. It's meant to be feature parity with Jobs, so there's a lot of things we're going to do with it, and we're going to tell you what those things are going to be. But for now, we're going to show you what it can do, which is not as much as you perhaps like, but we want to make sure it's out, not too crazy. We want to get it in people's hands so that they can try it out, feel it out, play with it. Hello, Scoo. Figure out some of the bugs, get the core tenets of the system working, because once those are out, as we'll discuss later, you can go crazy with the system, and it'll be amazing and wonderful and all that. So, let's see. Yep, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming to it. The core fundamentals of Quests, once they're out, will be such that we can add a lot of features to it fast, because once the core fundamentals work, are tested, bug-free, the players are happy with them, being able to add things is going to be very easy because of the way that it was written. And I think that's just a testament to having 9 years of working on Loka, because Quests, in the way that it is now, could never have been written any sooner than this, because I've needed, personally, the whole history of Loka to learn how to program this well, quite frankly. So, anyway, I know you guys are excited to get into seeing some stuff, so a couple more things to go over before we do. Just as an overview of Quests, the whole point is that it's meant to be way less restrictive than Jobs ever was. There is immense potential power in the questing system. Like, in the old questing system, you really were only kind of limited to, like, hunting, gathering, and discovering and meeting NPCs. That's it. In the new quest system, the intent in the distant future, once it's, like, past its, few weeks or month of kind of growing pains, is that you can do just about anything you can think of in Minecraft and call it a quest. And that's the whole point. The whole point of Quests is to put the power in the player's hands, to write their own stories and put it behind Quests. And I think the most important difference between Quests and Jobs is that Jobs was, for the most part, except for a couple RP-specific towns, Jobs was used as a sort of just fetch quest system. It was a town's way to say, hey, you're new, go get me diamonds for the town. That's it, right? A couple towns used the job system and the features that it had to make some story a little bit to it. But the big difference between the two systems is that in quests, the things you gather for a quest and turn in do not go to the town or player in the end. It's like if your quest is to go gather diamonds, you don't get diamonds as a town owner. You don't like obtain diamonds as a result of doing the quest. Quests are called quests because they're strictly for story, effectively. And so if you're wondering to yourself, whoa, what happened to Jobs? What happened to my ability to ask for town members to go do things for me in terms of like mining diamonds? We're going to add that. Effectively, it's going to be towns are going to have their own sort of vendors where they will request and sell stuff. Go ahead, Nick.
To add to that, the market 2.0 that we did a while back was basically the preemptive version of that. We added buy orders to the market and sell orders, as well as the regular buying and selling, and that's effectively what we're going to give towns the ability to have their own. So at a certain level, they'll be able to unlock the ability to make buy and sell orders within their town, and that will kind of replace that section of the jobs where you've got the physical items. The quest system is all soul-bound items, non-tangible items. I mean, you can obviously, put them in your inventory and stuff, but you're not going to be able to sit there and turn them into shards. If it's ores or whatever, they're going to be, I guess, effectively an RP item.
Yep.
Rather than
we wanted to make a clear distinction. There was basically at the first iterations of quests, and maybe a lot of you are not here to hear about the history of quests, but we tried to make it like jobs. But then we realized we freed ourselves in a lot of ways if we didn't have to deal with weird situations where, like, well, you mined a diamond, but you were on a quest that asks for diamond. So is the diamond the one that you want, or is the diamond for the quest? And so we solved these problems by splitting them apart. Quests are quests because they're not jobs anymore. They're not requests to do things. They're just story advancing things. So, and of course, what this really is meant to do is, as many of you know, there's a PvE team on Loka, and they haven't gotten to do very much because we've basically told them don't worry about anything right now. Don't use the job system. We're gonna have a whole new system for it. And they've been sitting in the wings waiting and writing stories and writing quests for the upcoming quest system so that they can finally unleash upon Loka the thing that a lot of our core and veteran players have been asking for, which is a return to storytelling, lore, and expanding on, like, what is the story of Loka, which is something we've neglected for a very long time, and we recognize that, and we can't wait to, like, let players go crazy with not only learning our story that we want to tell, but also for towns to be able to just go absolutely crazy with telling their own stories and basically making their own storylines and quests and everything. And that's what this is all meant to do.
Yeah, there'll be a few features here and there that will be exclusive to the PvE team, Loka's, like, official quest lines and stuff, because obviously there's a few things that won't translate properly for town quests, some things that are too powerful for any old player to be able to use on the server, but on the whole they'll be fairly on par with one another.
Yep. And I'm almost ready to start showing some stuff off. Of course, the UI, the GUI. So for those of you who are haven't heard me say the word before, it's an industry term. It's called GUI, but it's the GUI, the graphical user interface, whatever. It's basically our way of saying menus in Loka. As you've noticed, we've tried to make everything that's new based on it, like operating a Minecraft inventory. Servers everywhere do this. This is normal. We've got a lot of things that are still commands, but we continue to make them become GUIs in the future, and quests are the thing that needed it most, because those of you who work with jobs in any meaningful way probably understand the huge pain that was trying to edit your job in the middle of chat texts or global chat or public chat going crazy. It's just dumb. It's stupid. So we knew that was like kind of the first thing we had to do, was move everything about as much as possible about quests into GUI operations. So, but it is, of course, subject to change, and it will obviously change. And we realize that a system like this, which is pretty much I made it for other people to use so that I didn't have to, basically. It's going to require your feedback, input, and all that stuff. So lastly, if you're here and you don't know, we have a test server. It is not open yet, but the intent is that you guys will be able to come over to the test server to test these features out, and we really, really want you to, because the more people getting into this stuff, testing it, breaking it, specifically breaking it, the better, the more polished a thing we can have by basically Sunday, which is what by at some point Sunday this system is meant to be released, because we want to have it available to just get some basic cool anniversary quests going, get the system figured out, polished, and all that stuff. Go ahead, Max.
Something important to stress is that this is phase 1 of quests. The launch on Sunday is more just the existing quest system with a few more added things, and then in the coming weeks and months we'll be adding more and more functionality to quests.
Functionally, quests don't do a crazy amount of stuff. That they allow you to edit quests in the way that you're kind of sort of used to, way easier. But in terms of like features, like I said, we have a huge roadmap planned, but a lot of it can be added very, very quickly just because of the way that we wrote this. And once we know that the core systems work really well, we can go crazy and start to add a bunch of stuff. And I would expect like a lot of updates to quests over the next 2 weeks or so. Just as we go, great, it works. Okay, now you can do this and this and this, and it's going to be great. So, I think we're ready. So, /J is gone. It's not jobs. So it's /Q. You'll notice that the suggested commands here are simple. There is create a quest, edit a quest. EO is a special one for PvE team. It's basically edit official, so you don't need to worry about that. You won't see it unless you're on the like the PvE team. And then L, which is list your jobs. Like I may use jobs accidentally because it's pretty hardwired into my brain, but I will try to remember to use the word quests. So quests are created simply through qcreate. That's it. You're going to make a job. You don't have to think about what the title is or anything, because we realize that people probably make a quest first and then sort of play with it a little bit and go, oh, okay, now I realize that this is going to be a quest called whatever. So when I said the UI is subject to change, this is why. This may seem and will be overwhelming to the majority of players, basically, because it's a lot of random buttons. But you'll come to understand it. So I'm going to work through the system so that when you come to the public test server is what we're calling it, PTS anyway. Sometimes it's private, sometimes it's public, but we'll move on from that. You probably won't have any idea what you're doing. Go ahead.
I'll get to questions as well after Crip's gone through an example as well. So if you do throw them in chat, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, we will definitely have a QA session later. So it's going to basically be top down. And Loka's GUIs all kind of work in this regard. There's sort of like this top down overall thing. There's like a divider, which for what it's worth, I'm not using the default texture pack, but you used to be probably familiar with iron bars as dividers. We're changing that a little bit. We're still mucking with it a little bit to make it the most clear. But anyway, you basically have a quest. It all starts as unnamed quests by yourself. And the first and foremost thing is that this thing will tell you what you haven't done yet to make a full quest. Needs a name, needs a reward, needs a description, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to work through that. So basically, you can consider this third row here as all the things that you probably will do in order to make a quest. You can set the name of it. You can set the description of it. You can set the requirements that are required before you can accept a quest. Think of this as like, I have to do this one quest before this one. That's where this is at. There are objectives. This is a big difference from jobs. If you remember, in jobs, you had to create up front. You have to decide whether it was a gather quest or a hunt quest or a bounty quest or a discover quest. That's not the case anymore. You don't do that anymore. And then finally, there's rewards. That's obvious. We'll get into some of these other buttons a little bit later, but let's just start with making a quest. So we're going to say this Loka great big quest fun times. Beautiful. That's now the name of my quest. Perfect. And that requirement is gone. Descriptions. This is the other big departure from jobs. As jobs editing was done in the chat, so we're hearing about jobs. Like the NPCs would talk to you in the chat text. That's gone. Everything about quests is pretty much going to be, if not 100%, over 95% done through books. The book GUI. Because it's a way to read, know, learn, understand, know what you need to do without public chat going crazy and completely messing with you. So,
yeah.
There are...
It also gives you a ton more room to write descriptions, because one of the big restrictions we had in the past was, you want to write all this lore and backstory about these NPCs and conversations, and you're limited to 120, 50 characters, whatever it is. You've got 50 pages of a book now, so that should satisfy most people's needs. I'd hope so, anyway.
So there's two ways to do the description, and this is exactly the same as the old job system. You could either just write it in chat, or you can provide a book. You can write the book ahead of time and set it, but for now, I'm just going to be like, this is a quest that requires, I can't type, you to do things that are totally awesome and neat. Great. We're done. That's the description. I'm going to show you this, noting that this is one of the buggy features, is that the way that we format books is kind of wonky right now. It's meant to, well, I'll just show you later. So just note that we have done this and that there's 2 ways to do it, in chat or via book. Next, there's requirements. So, again, the GUI is subject to change. This is not very beautiful to look at because it's only 2 things we've basically put in so far. But, it is common for a quest to require another quest to be done beforehand. That's your normal quest chain. That's fine. So I will click this, but I have one quest that I've done before. Cryptic Cove. I sit in that town a lot. I've done it. I'm just going to go ahead and say this quest requires that I have completed this quest once before. That's how that works. Obviously, and this is, I think, a new one that I don't know if we got around to adding in jobs. If we did, it's just because I forgot about it. Town prestige requirement, that's a pretty obvious one. Towns frequently reward prestige, but then might want to gate certain quests behind having a certain amount of prestige. You can do that. There's a lot of requirements yet to be added, but
there's
these are the only
things
2 we
like
got so far.
a shard cost if you wanted to gate a quest behind. You've got to pay up front a bunch of shards or a certain item or something before you're allowed to do the quest. Lots of other things.
Yeah, we'll save the things we're gonna do for a little bit later, just so we can chew through this. Because if you're thinking about it, we probably have too. So we're gonna go back. So that's a requirement, right? Gotta have done this one first. Now there's objectives. Of course, this is what you expect, except that the difference between jobs and quests is that you can have an infinite number of objectives of a quest. Presently, all we have are gathering objectives, discovery objectives, and hunting objectives. But this is how you add one. So, you want to say, I want to go gather an item. Cool, click this. This is the job's equivalent of pick one item out of your inventory. You're familiar with this. This is not new. I have an end crystal in my inventory, whatever. I'll go back to objectives. And then there's this one. Add objective by picking one out of a menu. This is the different one. So this is subject to, this is like, we just added this like 30 minutes ago, but this is how this is going to work. So this is, I want to add a quest requirement to gather an item, but it's not in my inventory, but I want you to go get trees or something. Well, here you go. You can go through the pages of pretty much everything in Minecraft and pick one. I want you to pick pink tulips. Cool, there we go. There's my pink tulip requirement. Gathering requirement, that is to say. So there's 2 objectives to gather 2 different things, one of each. So objectives is your one way to sort of add any number of things that you want to do. If you want your quest to be complicated and have 10 objectives, you can. That's up to you.
Something I will just add briefly is it could be slightly confusing that we just said sort of gathering physical items is something you can't do with this system. Now, because you've set to gather pink tulips, if you do go however we set it up, it will be a soul-bound pink tulip that can't leave your inventory or be traded with another player or whatever when you receive it. So it is separate from buy and sell orders in that sense.
Yeah, and the huge difference is that again, you as a town owner can make a quest as crazy as you can imagine. Go to Calros, slay polar bears that drop end crystals. Great, that's how that works. They are, of course, not real end crystals that you get in the end, but it is the quest. The freedom is yours to make it as crazy or legitimate or real or whatever story as you want. That's the whole point, and that's the freedom that we gained by basically saying that jobs have become quests, and quests are split apart from towns having their own sort of market vendor system. So, all gathering objectives rather, you'll note say quite simply, you got to do something about this. If I were to go back here, one of the missing bits would be that you have gathering objectives that are incomplete. So, because Jammin's a troll, I'm going to go ahead and fly up into the sky so I don't hear cool banners of conquest. Mad kicked him already. Good for you. So, you have to add a requirement. So, here's pink tulips. Currently, and this is one of those things that we will add a lot more to, you can add pink tulips that either drop off of mobs that you kill or that you find. So here's an example. I'm going to go over here on the Great Bridge. The great noob bridge. And I'm going to type QE to go back into my quest editing system. And hey, look. Oh, no, it didn't work. Yeah. Well, it was worth a shot. We were hoping that was going to cave. One of the things that we realize is that people are going to get very deep into these menus of making a job. And it's not ready yet, but one of the things we're going to do is try our best to keep you where you were. So that if I were to QE, what was meant to happen was that I'd be right back here editing pink tulips. Because otherwise you have to go drill 4 layers deep to get back to where you were, and that's no fun, and nobody likes that. So anyway, I'm going to click this, define a location where this item can be found hovering on the ground. Well, here's a pink tulip. And here's a preview that I see only as the maker. That's it. Showing a pink tulip, where it is going to be, that's the coordinates for about 5 seconds. That's just a little thing for me. So if I go back into pink tulips, here is the thing I just added, which is the ability to find a pink tulip floating on the ground. So basically all of you are thinking, well, this sounds familiar to Firestone. That's correct. Firestone is an example of a gathering quest that says find things that are just floating on the ground. We've made those jobs before. Those should be fairly usual to you. But then you can also say, okay, pink tulips. Let's just pink hibiscus. I'm so sorry. Wait, is it pink tulip? Okay, well here's a bug. Pink tulip properties, pink hibiscus in game. That's interesting.
Is that the texture pack by any chance?
No, the texture pack doesn't change the name. I think that's just weird Minecraft.
It does. The texture pack will change the name. The resource pack can change the name. I bet that's what it is.
That's dumb. Well, anyway, pink.
It's very silly.
Pink, whatever. I think it's whatever. Anyway, of course, I don't want to just require one. I want to require a whole stack. So great. Now I require 64 of these flowers. We're just going to call it that for now. So 64 of them can currently be. Oh, so one pink tulip can be found floating here. These are kind of the bugs that we're working through. But I want to also say that you can get them off of mobs. Now here's a thing that is subject to change. Again, we've got all the mobs all the entities that exist in Minecraft. We're gonna whitelist this. It's not gonna be like armor stands, but it will be like, okay, let's say cow. Great. Cows now drop pink tulips. Okay, great. But I want to go deeper than that. And let's just say cows can drop 2 to. All right, my bad. Using my number pad is how OBS works. So 2 to 4 cow, pink tulips. Great. Now if I kill a cow, it'll drop 2 to 4 pink tulips. Cool. Let's go deeper. Cows anywhere drop 2 to 4 pink tulips. No, I want to say that cows on Ascalon drop 2 to 4 pink tulips 50% of the time.
Probably a bad example, seeing as cows only spawn on Ascalon.
Of course, I was somewhat limited by what I could currently do, but yes, that's the point. That is the level of granularity we're going to let you guys have.
You can go even a step further and say, this specific tile on Ascalon is where it happens. You can go to World Guard regions and etc. Like you can be
the proverbial you. So here's the thing: there's 2 things missing from this part right here. Regional objectives is a concept, right? It's a world, an area, a territory, a World Guard region. Now, only quest makers will get access to the World Guard regions. That's pretty high level stuff. However, the rest of you will get the option to choose a world, choose an area, or choose a territory. And what an area is by our definition, as I will show you before, rather than tell you. So we've defined end crystals. We haven't, but we've defined the flowers. So now I'm going to say I want to add to this job an area requirement. Great. Pick an area. Pick a world. We're going to go with I don't care. Ascalon, since we're already here. And now they're all paper, which kind of sucks. But an area is what we define as anything when you walk into an area on Loka. If you're used to seeing like a title show up in your face, that's an area. Ruins are areas, right? But down here, the Sylvan Isle, like that's the West Resource Isle. That's an area. The ocean apparently is an area. You could discover the ocean. You could discover Oakheart, which is the boat. So we'll just say that. So great. Now part of the objective for this job is that I have to discover the boat. I have to go find Oakheart. And I guess in this circumstance might be a little confusing because Oakheart exists at spawn and in the west, so that might be a little weird. But technically, I think this one actually means the one in the western continent. But you see where we're going with this. So the power I think you guys are starting to understand, I hope, is that you can if you think that something needs to be done, and here's where it needs to be done, and when it's done here, maybe it has a percent chance to be done. That's the power we're basically letting you guys have freely.
Yeah, and we'll go a layer deeper. While it's not something that's in this exact build, but something like naming the items and giving the items custom lore. So if you've got an NPC that's got this really valuable sword and it's got all this lore on it, and the story is the polar bear has eaten the swords, right? He's gone and eaten the swords, no idea why, and killing the polar bears will drop this special sword, right? So,
like, Bone was an example we were. Creative. Yeah, bone was an example we were talking about before. Is like collect bone. Well, you're not going to just ask for bones, right? You wanted to be like bones of lost something or whatever. That bone, dark polar bear bones, right? And you decide that I have to go to one of the frozen wasteland top, northeast. Is it east? Yeah, northeast Calros. You have to go there specifically, hunt polar bears there specifically that drop frozen bones there specifically, and that's your quest.
You would be able to name those polar bears as well. The polar bears that drop these, all polar bears in that area will spawn in as, the big scary frost polar bear or whatever you want to call it.
That one's further down the line, but yes, that's the kind of
that's the thing we want to be
crazy granularity we're talking about. So those are objectives. I think you can extrapolate where those go. Hunting requirements.
Yeah, and specifically with that gathering one, again, just to add to things that, currently, like in this build, as I said, there's only the mob drop and the location one. Things we want to add is block drops. So if it's breaking certain blocks, we'll drop certain items. Chest and any kind of item with a GUI inside it, that taking items from that would be a way of gathering. Fishing, another way of gathering something. So they're all things that will get added to specifically those gathering objectives.
Yeah, if you can dream it, there's a good chance that that's one of the ways that you're going to be able to do a quest in the future, for the most part.
But feedback, if you've got ideas of stuff, throw them our way, and it might be something we hadn't thought of potentially.
Yep. So then rewards would be the last one. I think this one's fairly self-explanatory. Right now, the only thing we have to show off is prestige. Again, already exists in jobs, and item rewards, which is just the same thing, right? I can pick an item. I now say that this rewards you 27 dirt. The concept of having to add, and this is where you do it, instances of a job is the same. Like if you want, or if you're making a town job that rewards 27 dirt, you need to put up 27 dirt over and over again to make that many levels of that many amounts of the job available for your town people to do, because that's what they actually get. You don't get the stuff they turn in. You don't get end crystals, tulips, or bone, but they do get 27 dirt when they complete the quest. So you have to put up that's an unchanged element.
But again, for the requirements, if you did say if you want to give them these cool rewards, but it's gonna, financially cost you too much to give out all these rewards, you can put a shard up front cost for somebody to do the quest, so you can kind of pay for the reward as well. That's kind of the workaround. So if you wanted to, I guess you could in theory kind of go down the old system of give me 64 dirt, and then I want you to gather 64 dirt, and I'll give you a reward for it. You could do something slightly funky like that if you wanted to work around.
Yeah. So this is potentially subject to change. It's currently it's saying that you cannot add a prestige reward because it's not a town quest. Well, and so it's a good segue to how town quests work. We just wanted to make it easier on everybody. First, you're going to make a quest. Then you're going to put it together and think about it. If you want it to be a town quest, you can just convert it right here. You can convert it. You cannot be undone. Great. Okay, I shift clicked. Now it's a Cryptic Cove town quest. Great. Now I can go to rewards and say, great, this rewards 250 prestige. Great. So now it rewards this much prestige and 27 dirt. Pretty cool. I didn't think ahead, and so I have to pee really, really bad. So I'm going to let Mag talk about some other stuff while I'm gone, and I'm going to just hover over something interesting. This quest giver stuff. I'll let you talk about quest givers and quest destination people. How about that?
Sure.
Cool.
Just a quick one on rewards, though. There are going to, again, they're just the initial things with rewards, For official ones, there'll be things like giving orbs for certain holiday quests, etc. The quest giver, and I believe it's turn in, we've called it. Yeah. So basically, you can assign a quest to either a sign or an NPC, and that's the same for towns. So one of the things that's going to be different is because we've moved to the book GUI and some of the things we're doing, an NPC will be able to be both a vendor and a quest giver. And, it'll open the book GUI and you'll be able to pick between, do you want to buy something or do you want to do this quest? The quest turn-in can only be an NPC, pretty much. It's either going to be an autocomplete, in that, as soon as the objective is complete, the quest will be done, and it will immediately give you the reward, or you can have to take it to a specific NPC. It doesn't have to be the same NPC that gave the quest, kind of similar to the old system there. There's obviously on completion text, which is kind of linked to that. Again, the same as the old quest, but system. But it would still be in that book GUI form, which is important. A few questions that I'll go back to.
I am done PP.
All right, so
you talked about the two. Yes. Okay. Cool.
Let me just see.
Before I would say before you get onto the question and answer session, I want to do those like all at once.
Okay, sure.
Assuming you've talked about assignment and to turn in, then there's the advanced options button down here.
Yep,
so we realize that this menu right here has a huge potential to be overwhelming, and it will be. Even if we take a bunch of stuff off of it, it's going to be a lot to take in, but people will get used to it. We're putting everything that isn't obvious, or everything that we don't think is going to be fundamental to a normal quest, into this like
niche stuff.
Yeah, extra page. So if you were familiar with jobs, you were familiar with setting jobs that it could expire, or jobs that could be repeated, jobs that were part of an exclusive set, which I don't think was probably something we allowed towns to do, but we will. So if you're new and you don't know what this is, quests could expire after a period of time. That's just for whatever reason. If you want to do that, you can. Repeatable quests.
If you want to do a quest, go to this location, but you've got to do it within 20 minutes. You can put an exploration time and kind of almost design a race effectively if you really wanted.
Well, and additionally,
I'm sure there's a lot of interesting ways people could come up with this as well.
The impetus behind expiring quests was actually public quests, because people were making jobs that were like, "Hey, go do this for me," and then people would accept the quest, and because they accepted the quest, it took that version of the quest away where you had to pay them out. And if if you put up enough diamonds for people to do 5 of your quest, and 5 people accepted your quest and then quit forever, nobody new could accept your quest. So we wanted people to be able to let their quests expire. If you didn't do it in enough time, they got that instance of the quest back, so new players could do it. That was a good part of the reason. Repeatable quests, I think, are self-explanatory. I don't need to worry about those. It's daily quests or hourly quests or whatever you want.
Yeah, you can retake up this quest every X time.
Exclusive quests are, I don't know that towns could do it, but they will be able to. It is the concept where there are 3 quests you can do all at once. Well, 3 quests available to you. You have to pick one. You cannot do all 3. That's all that is. Whatever you want to do with that is up to you. Discoverable quests is the Firestone. That's our best example. It's a quest that you're technically already on, but you don't know it yet. However, if you go to the Dreadfort, you will see this piece of a Firestone fragment sitting on the ground, and you run over it, you pick it up, you've gotten credit for the quest, you discover the quest in doing so, and then you're like, oh my gosh, there's a Firestone quest. Cool, I gotta go find the other 2 pieces. That's discoverable. That will be doable in so many other ways now, so it's not just going to be items floating on the ground. You might kill a cow on Ascalon, and you're in a town, and in doing so, you might discover your town has a quest. They've decided that there's a quest for killing cows, and you've just discovered it. That's just up to you again.
I mean, you could do something like, you now face a penalty. You could go down the route of you killed a cow. That's against the law. You now have to, do this thing as some sort of redemption quest line, effectively, or whatever.
Yeah. And we'll get into why that's possible a little in a moment. And then lastly, at least to show, there are the concept of quest tags, because we realized as quest makers ourselves, and as any big town, say Aru or whatever, you had started to make a number of quests, enough quests that you had no way to organize it, because back in the day, or currently rather, you just type JE and you just like, maybe 30 things might spit out in your inventory. Well, if you want to have a bunch of quests that are specifically for something in your town that you might call like the Blacksmith Guild or something like that, you can create a tag called Blacksmith Guild. Now, right now in this inventory, you cannot create new tags, but you will be able to. As a town, you will have your own set of tags that you're welcome to say, these are all my blacksmith quests. And then later, if you want to be like, oh, I want to look through all my blacksmith quests, I can do it. It's organization to help you organize your stuff, because we know it's going to get crazy later, and that's just us thinking ahead as best as we can. Mm-hmm. Now, in my case, I have 4 tags that are pre-populated. One of them's for funsies. I think you can guess that this is the one. And 3 others that official quests will be tagged under. So there's the dank tag. All the quests I make by default are dank, of course. But there's also 3 more, and these are important. They're only official quests will be like this. Town quests won't have these. But there is the concept of holiday quest, of course, a main story quest, which I think some of you have asked about before, and then a story quest, which we consider storyline quest, but isn't part of the one or n number of main Loka storyline quests. There's going to be 2 of these kinds.
It's effectively a secondary quest line kind of thing. If you think your traditional RPG, you've got a main quest line and you've got secondary quest line or side quest lines, effectively. But they are longer quest chains rather than a standalone. Do this quest is done kind of deal.
And the reason I bring these up is because the thing I didn't want to turn around and show you earlier was exactly these things. So this Jammin and Froggy are helping greatly. Let me see if they're paying attention. All right, cool. Okay, so here's a lot of colors on your screen. Skoohoo, congratulations, you're the first to pay attention. So those 3 tags that I mentioned, the ones that only official quests will have, are represented here. So those of you with jobs or who've done any jobs on Loka are familiar with the concept that there's yellow ones and blue ones, right? The yellow quest is one that you can accept. The blue one is one that you can accept, but is repeatable. Daily quests, for example, are the best example of blue quests. There are now 3 new colors of quests that you're going to start seeing over the course of months or whatever, weeks, months, whatever. And that's purple, red, and gold. So a purple quest is a holiday quest. All the Yuletide quests, all the Nether's Eve quests, stuff like that. Those will be purple. It's your quickest way to say, oh, purple quests are the holiday ones. I want to go do those because I haven't done them yet, and they're time limited. That's why they're that's why they're purple. Red quests are, well, let me go to gold first. Story. Ignore gold or ignore gray and green down here. This gold is very much like yellow, but it's the secondary story quest line. There will be quite a lot of these. But the real meat and potatoes, those of you who are out there waiting for story for Loka, should look out for these. Note that the rest of these are all exclamation marks. It's sort of a standard we're setting for, like a lot of games do this. Exclamation mark means available quest, great, cool, whatever. We're breaking our own rule for this one specifically because these we feel are the most important quests if you give any bit of a damn about Loka that you should do. If you see one of these, this is the main story of Loka. This is the way that we're going to communicate best to players, short of RP events, which aren't coming up necessarily very soon, but in quest form they will be. This is how you're going to learn about the story of Loka. So
yeah, to note, when you accept a quest, it will turn grey, which is the example on the left under the gold tag. Yeah. They'll turn grey, and the arrow symbol basically means that is now the turn-in NPC. And then green, of course, when you've completed the objectives, and you can now turn it in effectively, which is pretty much what we had in the old questing system.
We just cleaned it up a little bit. The symbols have some more meaning now, as opposed to being just random squares that I basically pulled out of a hat when I made the system. So these are the 5 possible colors a quest will be, and it's meant to communicate what you need to know from a distance, because you might be looking out upon the docks and seeing all. You probably won't see all 5 of them at once, but you might be like, daily quest, cool. I might grab it, but I don't need to because I can do it tomorrow. A yellow quest, oh, I've never done it before. Great, cool. Purple, I gotta do them because Yuletide might be over soon. And then these last 2, which are like, I care about lore and story. I want to know what's going on with stuff. That's what these are for. So that's what the tags basically allow us to do. These 3 over here.
But that will only be official quests. Town quests will not have access to those particular 3 colors.
Not the colors, but you can tag it as much as you want. It's just to keep yourself
Right.
organized. So, let's see. That's
Shall I dive
roughly.
into a few questions?
Yeah, I think that's roughly it. Like I said, what you see is what you get, but what is coming is so very much more. We just wanted to show it to you now because we are under a deadline that we want to hit, which is just at least to get the system out running and working at least reasonably well by the anniversary. Because the minute we can get all this stuff kind of figured out, sussed out, bug free, or at least fairly well polished, there are a ton of things that we're going to go over here in a little bit, which are what we plan to add in the future. Because of course, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, there's a lot of missing pieces, and we know that, but they're coming. But yeah, so let's do questions.
This from all previous quests. It was something we thought about of like, writing a system to transfer old quests into the new system. Basically, we came to the conclusion that it wasn't really possible, and or it wasn't going to work very well, just by how basic the older quests were compared with the new ones. It just wasn't going to work. So in terms of like any of the sort of like ones you see around spawn, so the fisherman and farmer things that Leafshard brings up, yeah, we'll remake them in the new system or change them, what have you. As for towns, it sucks a little bit that they will have to redo them. Things we might do is give them the data of all of their sort of quests in terms of descriptions and everything they've written about it, so they're able to translate it into the new system easier. But I imagine in most cases people will want to rewrite them from scratch anyway, because you can do so much more with this. Anything you wanted to add to that at all, Craig?
No, that's really it. I mean, I had to obviously make the call at some point myself because I'm the one coding it, and I just realized that the more we develop the system, the less similar they were.
Relevant, the old, yeah.
And we had a couple people come to us and be like, we know what most of the town jobs are. Some of them are quite complex and thought through. And the fact that exists in the old system is great, because what we can do in the new system means I think these people are going to really like blow our minds with some of the coolness of the quests that the towns do. But they thought that the vast majority, quite honestly, were quite simple and quite easily reproducible. And yes, we're happy to, and we'll make this apparent when we release the system and have our update thread, which is that if you want your like old job data so that you can like sort of parse it somehow, pull out like most of the work. I think that most of the hardest stuff for a lot of people was probably like either setting locations or more likely like formatting text and stuff like that. So hopefully we can pull that back out and give it to you so you can just copy pasta into the new system.
Will there be a main storyline or just lots of separate side quests? We kind of touched on that. Now,
Yep.
Obviously, because things that we'd want to do for main and sort of the side long story quests, they're not going to be instant. It's not going to be something that gets released along with quest. Quest is going to be iterated on and these new features added, and with those new features will allow us to then start pumping out some of these sort of main storylines. Now, they take a bit of time, and we consciously want to release them in a big bunch. We don't want to sort of release one quest one week, another quest the next week, and then somebody does it in an hour, and then they've got to wait another week. We want to push them out at least in the first wave in a big chunk. So it's not going to be sort of a trickle of things. So it won't be immediate, but yes, we are 100% going to be doing that.
I think it's important to stress that if you haven't noticed, a big part of what makes Loka is just the fact that players run things. Yes, there will be official stuff on our end, and yes, we want to do official storytelling and whatnot, but the other 60% of perhaps this questing system is because we've seen what players not only are capable of, but want to do in their towns. Towns have a lot of features already, and we haven't even had our Towns 2.0 update yet, and they do these crazy cool quests for themselves. And I felt like, we obviously think they could do so much more. And so what makes Loka is that you forge your own story. And not only maybe that doesn't mean you do it in the conquest landscape. Maybe it means that you are one of the coolest RP towns that also has some of the greatest, the most dynamic quests that you've ever heard of, and wouldn't that be cool to be able to do that and
So,
allow people that power, basically. So
will there be new story islands slash buildings throughout the five resource isles? I assume you're referring to the Netherrealm
I think it's
as
just
well.
yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the idea with quest locations is, at least for the NPCs. Now, there's only basically one place NPCs can't ever be, and that's on the bulk of the continent where a town can be settled. Now, for obvious reasons, if you've got a quest there and a town settles over it, nobody has access to that NPC anymore, and that's a problem. So what we want to do is make use of the resource isles that you mentioned, but also, again, in the future, moving forward, we're going to want to add new islands around the continents to kind of almost act as questing isles in a sense, just as another safe place. And we can target builds and stuff around the stories of these quests as well. So that's kind of the route we're going when it comes to that, because as I say, we physically can't put them on the main continent themselves.
Why
Let's
did
see.
my Minecraft crash? What the
When are
hell?
oceans updating? Slightly unrelated, but basically we need Optifine to be released for 1.15. Once Optifine's released for 1.15, we can then update to 1.15, and once we're updated to 1.15, it's no longer blocking our ocean content, which is using 1.14 builds. So that's the timeline on that one. Will players be able to make server-wide quests or just town? Yes, I think this is something we didn't touch on specifically. So there's basically three types of quests. You've got official server quests that are made by ourselves, the PvE team, etc. You've got town quests, which any player can make within the town, and then there's this third system, which is a bit more funky, which is public quests. Now, in the old system, there was a little board near the center of spawn, and you can only assign them to signs rather than NPCs for public ones. So that's not in this system currently, or it's not fully fleshed out. So we're still working through the best way to do public quests. Whether there should be just one big hub of like a notice board where it brings up a giant GUI of every public quest. I kind of compare it to the notice boards in The Witcher 3. But yeah, we want people to be able to do public ones as well as towns. It's just they have to be a little more restrictive in terms of using NPCs and stuff, to avoid confusion with official quests, but also it can cause some continuity issues as well. But that will be possible.
I'll be damned. Loka is unconnectable right now. I hope that's not just me.
The squirrel's been at it again.
Well,
Chewing
I
through the
never
wires.
have an issue actually connecting to the server, so that's somewhat unusual. But it seems like people are on the server. There's only one way to find out.
How long are you guys thinking
Ooh.
until the big push of quests? So we're thinking 1.15 update. It will 100% be after 1.15. I mean, again, I go back to the kind of tentative timeline of you need Optifine for 1.15, then 1.15, then you can do Oceans, and then once that's done, then we'll sort of be looking at the big push of quests. Obviously, they take a hell of a lot of time and a hell of a lot of dev work, and then obviously they need to be rigorously tested, and we also want a huge bulk of it, so it will come after that. In the meantime, we'll probably fill it with smaller, more one-time quests and rather than the big story stuff, because we really want to get that right, because that's stuff that players over the next however many years will always.
Oh, now Magpie has gone silent for me.
If you mean, so you'll be able to set the description. So what the NPC will tell you effectively. So when you click on an NPC to accept a quest, you'll get the book GUI that comes up with the quest info. Crypt might be able to show that
Yeah,
if he
let
goes
me
to.
show this with a pretty big caveat that it's one of the
Yes,
harder things
obviously
to
this
explain.
is not. Yeah, this is not the final display. If you go to either the chick outside the windmill or
So when you
Go
when
to
you
one
make
of the actual NPCs though, Crip. Just go,
yeah,
go
sure,
to
sure,
some.
sure.
Just go to something.
One must bunny hop. Salty. All right. So when
Yeah,
we're gonna we intend to open up the PTS with some quests for you to sort of do. This is one of them. So here we
So
go.
yes, basically now things we've thought about is adding kind of difficulty levels to quests and having that available in this bit of information as well. And various other things like what type of quest it is and things like that may be displayed here too in the future. But basically this info is available in your list of quests. So if you look at your list of accepted quests, once Crypt accepts it, he'll then be able to pull up this exact information again at any point
Yeah.
wherever he is. So if he didn't read it all at the first time, or he read it and he forgot like what it says to do specifically, etc., you'll always have it on you.
Yep. We understand that people are gonna, no matter what we do, they're gonna click, 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 accept as much as possible. But at least here, you have the option of reading. You have to go forward. This is now how quest accepting works. It is book only. You don't get to shift right click or anything. You got to read the book. There will be 2 giant buttons. So, cool. Accept. Except that Loka, as far as we're concerned, might be still blowing up right now for some reason. Or there's bugs. Either one is possible. There we go. Don't know why that took. Here's our in progress, right? So this new symbol is kind of our way of saying this is who you turn it into. So that means that this will become green at some point in the future. I have accepted my job. Here is my job. I can Q space L, which will become more fancy in the future. But here's my job, right? Kinetic energy, blah 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 blah. Gather an elytra. Rewards 1 dirt. Wow, that's a really crap reward, Mac. Holy crap.
It's a very salty NPC. But and again, so the symbols we're using here is also something that we've not fully settled on in the terms of like whether we assign an item, so the pickaxe in this case because it's a gathering objective, whether we do items because it's the type of quest, whether it's a repeatable or whether we give town quests full flexibility to assign whatever item they want to kind of display their quest. We're not 100% sure on that, so
subject to change, and also note
and
if
feedback and whatever's the most important bit of information to get across.
If you're watching the stream, note that there are some things you're going to see that we can do that you can't. For example,
yes, force complete.
to help quest making, you can force complete jobs as a quest maker. You can also abandon jobs that you've completed, which is never going to be a thing you can do on live because there's just no point, right? You won't see it, but which is all you need to know. But if we are wanting to test a thing over and over, we can abandon a job that we made. So don't read too much into what you see on my screen, but note that it's effectively similar, right? You're going to see this, which you're used to seeing. It's the same thing as jobs, and it is meant to be that way. That's fairly normal.
And I think something, it'll be a full GUI, and it will be paginated in some way, shape, or form, probably splitting active and completed quests, etc.
And town quests versus official quests and stuff like that. So. Well, I mean, the cat's out of the bag, I guess. A number of people are like, wow, there's a 1.2 thousand reports. No, so for all the people who see that, I think it's important that we always stress that those are not all bugs. There's probably 400 of them, which are just feelings that people had one time that we haven't gone through and dealt with.
Right? Yeah, so the problem with our current report system, which a certain unnamed person is still working on.
That's it.
Grumble.
Who just killed himself?
It's basically we need some kind of external report site to be able to clear out all of the. So some of these reports date back 5, 6, 7 years and are no longer valid because either mechanics and systems are no longer in. It's just it's just too much of a time sink for us to clear out until we have this report site. So Loka's buggy, but it's not that buggy.
So, all right. So before we drone on too long, let us get to the good stuff. All right. I think the last thing is worth covering, unless we see some more questions come up in the stream chat, is what are we going to do moving on? Because you guys have seen quests, and great. It sounds like jobs. It's just with a prettier menu. That's great. So here's the things. I'm going to just kind of gloss over some of them real quick that we plan to do for quests in the near future.
Some of the features we want to add to it.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to skip some of these because some of these are so far away I don't even want to tell you about them. Of course, hunting a player, obvious. We're going to get rid of bounties in this official sense. Like, they don't matter. Nobody cares, you know. Everybody accepts bounties or creates bounties, but nothing ever really comes of it. However, you should still be allowed to make a job in your own town, for example, to kill a player and then get a reward for it. I think that's completely fair. And of course, I think conquest counts as killing a player, right? So you can do that. You can either hunt a player, hunt a foreign player, hunt a specific player, like however many people want to make a job in a quest in their town that is to kill Skuhu. You go right ahead. Or, we thought this would be funny, a quest which is to kill yourself. You know, why not? And, cool. Quest requirements that you'll expect to see. Quests that can only be accepted or are only available at a specific time of day. Moon cycle, even. Raining could be that you have a quest that's only available if it's raining. You know, that's up to you. We want to add into the future the option of quests that have fail requirements. Obviously, the most straightforward one is like a quest that has a timer. You know, you have to complete it in a minute or whatever. It's a race. Complete it in a minute or you lose. But then there's other ones like maybe you have this quest you picked up. Well, if you die, you fail. Or perhaps the coolest one we thought was that based on a time. So you can only accept perhaps this quest at night, and once you accept it, you can only you must complete it by the next sunset, for example. You know, those are kinds of things we want to add. Otherwise, you fail. Quest tags is actually something we're adding, and will probably be available at some point, at some level during launch. I don't think I want to get too much into some of the rest of these because there's an amount of time they may or may not take, and there's a level of triage that Mag and I will do as to whether we need them now or whether they're quests features that can come later, because we realize that. Go ahead.
Cool. I was only going to say just that I recall seeing one other question further up is something about like conquest type based things. So I mean, one we've talked about as an objective is, you know, destroying a radar, for example.
100%.
Setting that as an objective for a quest. So and you know, tying it into achievements. So you could sit there and have an objective of do this specific achievement, and that way you can, you know, I mean, that opens up so many possibilities. So we'd like to tie it into some of Loka's systems as well. So you can pretty much do almost anything.
Yeah, let me tack onto that, because there's a section at the bottom of our little document called missing quest types, and I can just read them out. Talk to NPC, that's obvious. You know, we're gonna do that for sure. Defend this spot / NPC / whatever. Yeah, like you have to go stand here and you're gonna get mobbed by hordes of enemies. Yeah, that's one of them. Purge a shrine. Kill a radar. Mine X blocks in Y area. So, I mean, I can't think of a player on the server who's doing a lot of mining right now and might want help. But if there were such a person that lived in Garama, perhaps, they might want to do that for some of their members. And then this is the good one. This is the one that Mag and I are going to pat ourselves on the back for, quite frankly, is that it's a quest type which is to complete an achievement or try for an achievement. And the reason we're so excited for that is because we've already got a ton of achievements in Loka. Well, I wouldn't say a ton, a lot, and we have like 1 billion more we want to add. But our achievements are already things that you have to do to satisfy a result to get the achievement, right? So like win, some number of arena duels in a row. That's an achievement. Well, we want to let players have a quest that's basically that, like get 1700 in arena ranked PvP. You can make a quest which is just because it's based on an achievement that already exists, and so that it's a quest that you can only complete if you get 1700 in PvP. Great. it's like our way of saying we've already got all these objectives in the game already. Why we don't need to go add a bunch of tech behind it? Just complete this achievement. And
Yeah,
if you're
to tack
thinking,
onto the question though quickly of
oh
you
sure,
know are there new achievements that will be coming with Quest? It won't be with Quest. It will be after Oceans basically on our little roadmap if you like. Um, we've probably got I'd say at least I'd say a good 1,000 quests that we could potentially be adding in one
achievements.
big lump. Achievements, sorry, not quests. Thank you. Um, and I mean, basically the possibilities will be endless once we get that far. And yeah, there'll be exploration ones like finding certain things and obviously with new quest builds and this that and the other, there'll be new places to explore and find etc. So yeah, totally.
What I think a lot of people wonder about the Explorer title that people have. It's probable that what's going to happen is the people who have that title are going to have that title moved to something else. It won't be Explorer. It will be something else. Explorer is a title that feels like it should be very easily achievable on Loka, and not just because you managed to accidentally find something that we overlooked, which, as we continue to work on Loka, we don't fail in those kinds of things as often as we once did.
We've learned
So
our lesson, guys.
Explorer is something we feel as a title that people should be able to achieve, and will likely be, and quite frankly, it is likely to be, find all the admin houses, right? 'Cause there's one in the
Well,
north.
or do all of the exploration category achievements, which will be quite
Perhaps
challenging
even
once
both.
there are an enormous number. Yeah. So,
Right, but there's definitely more. Well, there, yeah. Well, there's definitely there's a lot of achievements coming up, and
yeah, in terms of titles specifically, there will be a few. I mean, we're obviously wary of like just flooding them, but yeah, there'll be various different ways and sort of a trickle of titles.
there's a sort of
So,
tentative concept for. So we have achievement points. This is a new thing in the server. You just get an arbitrary number of points based on the rarity of achievements that you've gotten. That you may be able that the plan is in the future you will be able to not spend, but because you have X minimum achievement points, you can buy whatever.
you'd be rewarded.
Yeah.
Basically, it will be you hit 500 achievement points, get X reward. Hit 1,000 achievement points, get a different reward. And there will be a sense of progression through that. And obviously, the number of achievement points that will be possible will be enormous when the achievements all get bumped on the server. So,
But there is a
um,
sort of a thought that quests might also reward points. So
yes, this is something we're not 100% on because that adds to yet another requirement potential. So you're sat there and you're going, okay, you can only do this quest if you've got X number of quest points, which are a part of a reward for doing, other quests. So you can kind of gate things that way, which might be something we do as well.
I'm going to scroll up a bit. We've actually
Yeah, I
skipped
was
a
just
lot
going
of
to say,
quests or
answer some of these
questions
other
rather.
questions of
Yeah.
will the main storylines involve huge buildings and stuff, and actually take a long time, or be more like boss fights? It's going to be a real mix. So it'll be some things that will, potentially involve. At least initially, I wouldn't expect enormous builds, but there are plans for enormous builds further down the main storyline. The idea is with the main story specifically is to kind of do big like phases of it. So it will only go up to a certain point in the first big batch, and then we may leave it on a cliffhanger. I don't know, but then we'll then have another kind of phase 2 of the main quest line kind of thing. So yeah, there'll be a mix of probably boss fights occasionally. Obviously a lot of story builds. Yeah, it'll be a real mix of everything, I'd say. It's not focused on one thing specifically. It's just gonna
It's
help
whatever it takes.
build the lore as
Yeah,
well
it's
of
it's we're going to build out a story first. We have a story built out. It's just a question of what's the best way to deliver it. So again, it's gonna be in probably chunks probably because we don't want to
well,
release like one half, tenth of a quest.
yeah, because that's no fun. Will you be able to do quests as towns or a group of people? I mean, technically, there's nothing stopping you. I mean, if you both accept the quest and go on it, there's no there's long-term plans of instancing, but certainly no short-term plans of it. So I mean, there's nothing stopping you in that sense. I don't think there's an official. I think there's any need for an official way, maybe.
I think he's
Because
getting closer to something like there's a lot of games these days where there's a quest that might only be doable provided there's enough people doing it
if
kind of
that
thing.
is, yeah, I mean, I could see. I mean, you take the Wither King at the moment is a very challenging thing to solo. So there will likely be elements of quests where you require other people, or at least it's certainly advised. It's also possible. Something we've thrown around the idea of is anyone who's played RuneScape and the Shield of Arav is a quest which physically requires 2 players to actually be able to complete. So we'll probably toy with ideas like that.
I wouldn't look at it as a quest that in and of itself says you've got to do this with people, as much as maybe the requirements make it such that you're like, well, okay, the quest just is to go kill a Wither King. Great. Well, I can't do that without 2 to 3 other people. So the quest objectives, like the quest requirements in and of themselves, maybe require people. But I don't think that, at least in the near term, we're going to say a quest you have to accept with 3 or 4 other people in order to do that. That's awfully restrictive, actually, and it's kind of counter to the way we want quests to be. We want quests to sort of, when you accept a quest, you know what you're getting into, and if that means you are going someplace so dangerous you shouldn't go by yourself, that's a kind of a consideration you have to make yourself.
In terms of server-wide quests,
we've done it before.
Yeah, I mean, the museum is an example of it. I mean, that's some more basic.
We should refresh memories, because I don't think everybody who's in here listening and watching knows what happened with the museum. And I just to refresh your memory, there was we tied unlocking pieces of the museum to enough minimum number of players
Resources.
Completing a quest, which was like,
Everybody
hey, go
had
gather
to
stuff.
To help build it effectively.
So, maybe, but that's not on the near term, just because it's quite rare that we do that.
Again, we kind of want to build up with quests. We don't want to. Yeah, I mean, we want to sort of, I say baby steps and kind of work our way up through and again, do things properly rather than just like going completely off the wall straight away. But yeah, I mean, I'd certainly down the line at some point. It's not in like super near future, but server events and quests are super cool. Like, I could certainly see it at some point.
Yeah, I wanna say that the reason we're going slow is because once we are confident that the core pieces of quests work well enough or are bug free or whatever, adding to the system, I wrote it in such a way that adding to the system is fairly trivial once everything works. So we'll be able to add a lot of these missing objectives or rewards or whatever that people want to do. But the reason that we're taking this sort of slow and cautious result or way or path, I guess is the way to put it, is because once we're confident and we can really start to go crazy with some of the missing features, Mag and I both strongly believe that this questing system will, and I'm not saying this, I'm not just blowing hot air, we strongly believe that the questing system on Loka that we have going so far has the potential to be unmatched, and I'm going to say it, the best questing system that exists in Minecraft on any server ever. And that's kind of the way we are approaching this, is what's the best way to do everything, and we feel we can pull this off. So going slow, making sure it works, and then adding what we need to. I think
but also,
that's what we're hoping for.
You look at an RPG, and you look at anything like Skyrim. You don't go and fight Anduin like on the first quest. It gets built up to it. Or at least
Well, I separate from that, I think, like, for example, like, we obviously are going to reference other servers that do questing to see how they do it. And Windcraft is a pretty obvious server to go check out. What do they do? How do they do quests? What's interesting about it? What's good? What's bad? Well, what we've noticed is that what we think is bad is the fact that their quests are all 100% filtered through chat text. And the way they seem to have solved their chat text spam problem is by closing you off from other players or hearing anybody. And we don't feel that's, because Loka's a very different server, the way to go. So, knowing that and saying that, if you guys have experience with questing on any other servers that you feel is a server or something that has done very well, that you think we should take a look at or just know about or whatever, please tell us, because there's definitely no sense in reinventing wheels. If somebody's doing something really, really well, we would love to know about it. But as far as some of the work that we've done to sort of explore what other servers do, there's stuff that they do well, but most of it we find wanting, and so we wound up just going, you know what, this is what we think is best. This is the way we think is the best way to go, and it's best for Loka, of course. So that's how we've kind of approached this whole questing system.
Yeah, and I suppose Windcross specifically, if we're using that example, I find it's quite restrictive in a lot of ways.
Lacking,
I mean,
even.
what they do is great, but like, I guess ours is more down the sandboxy kind of route of, you know, it's open, you can do anything kind of deal, rather than kind of such a strict structure around it. Question on will bosses scale in health the more people that are there? I mean, I'd say that's a boss or mob specific thing. It's quite possible that certain ones will have some kind of mechanics like that. You know, like if you take the Wither King as an example again, like, you know, if you die, he gets buffed. If somebody in a party dies, it's kind of like a downside of just spamming as many people as you can. So it'd be similar.
Server-wide quests will come when they are necessary. We'll never say no.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like we're going to say there's no more server-wide quests, but they're situational. I think maybe this is a good segue into what is the near-term roadmap, and I think Mags touched on this before.
We've kind of been through it, yeah.
Well, I don't. Did you mention that why there's been a lack of updates and content?
Yeah,
for Loka?
yeah. It's basically the essence of Minecraft updates block us because they don't work in multiplayer like 1.14.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to point out that we have all this ocean content, right?
That was touched on why. The
cool.
builds are impossible. They know that. But,
we made the builds in the wrong version, so 1.15, which is why it's 1.15 is meant to sort of fast follow quests, sort of, and because it's gonna like unlock. Yeah, if you've said all this,
I'd link it into the question of would you guys want a large increase in server pop, and I mean, what we want to do is once we've in 1.15 and finally on the latest patch, and you know, then we will start advertising again, which we haven't done in a few years, purely based on us being
heavily
stuck
advertised
in older versions and whatnot. Exactly.
We've advertised. We advertised in some circles, but we've never went ham because we didn't want it, to be honest. I know that people want a lot of people on the server, and so do we, but there's a growth that we want that's sort of manageable. And if suddenly Loka were to have 300 players at all times, we all know that the server wouldn't work. There's a reason we haven't tried to push our stuff as much as possible, and that's our server as much as possible, is because we think we want to get all our ducks in a row before we go crazy. And there are so many other servers that have grown exponentially, and they stomach it, but they also lag constantly. And we think that even though Loka lags a little bit, we like to think that we're one of the more we're one of the most stable servers out there. Obviously, it's 1.13 we're talking about, but 1.15 is one of those servers. Once we update, things might be a little touchy, but we have the ability and the know-how to address issues of lag and try to make it at least one of the most performant 1.15 servers that could be out there. So it's just a question of like we've been so slow in setting up Loka's growth, and it's been so slow and intentional, and I'm sure that's aggravating and almost like annoying for many of you. But what we're worried is going to happen one day is that a lot of people will join very suddenly, and and a lot of them, and the server won't be able to cope. And what they're going to come to experience is Loka barely working. And all those people are going to remember is the fact that, well, a bunch of people joined and the server just took a dump, and that's all they're going to remember. They're not going to come back. We would like that growth to be thought out. Yeah, we can grow, but like we grow slowly but surely, but until we are like happy with stuff, so that we don't think the server's going to blow up if suddenly 50 new people join. But maybe that just needs to happen in order to just make it work. That's just possible too. Unfortunately, we are screwed by Minecraft, one way or another. We only do so much.
Yeah, and you know, a big push, you know, a reasonable push will be after 150, and you know, it will be noticeable because, as I say, we just literally have done no advertising in the last 2 years. It's all been word of mouth stuff. So, yeah, it'd be nice to get some fresh faces.
NPC towns in the wild or RIs.
Town quests
can't do it in the wild.
Towns.
Yeah, we can't do NPC towns in the wilds. We're bound by the fact that
you can have the quest outside of the town, but the NPC has to be in the town. That's the important part. Any NPC you ever find outside of a town, it is an official quest. I've seen beachheads pop up a few times. That's basically the initial plan is next month's conquest cycle, but as I say, it's still a topic that needs to be discussed, fleshed out, all of the intricacies of it before we commit to saying it's 100% next month. But that is the tentative plan. If you know,
all goes well, but it might not. Like if there isn't at least if we don't if the server is a general.
If there's an inherent problem, then yeah, or you know, if we're not confident that it's gonna work as well as we want it to work, we won't do it just for the sake of doing it, you know. But as I said, forum post, I'm sure you're all aware of it if you want to discuss it. I mean, the 1.16 PvP, the new PvP system, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
We don't even know what version of Minecraft PvP the update's going to be.
We'll wait for Mojang. If they release something that's terrible and everybody hates it, then you know, then we'll look at our options then. But you know, we'll wait first.
I can't
imagine they'd release something stupid again. I'm pretty confident they'll think it through, but we'll see.
Personally, for 1.16, not PvP, I'm super excited. It's so cool. They're adding so much cool stuff that we're going to have to add. And I think the thing that most is exciting about 1.16, which we shouldn't dwell on too much, is the fact that they're adding new end game, so to speak. And the fact that they're adding new end game means we get to control the end game. Because one of the big problems with Loka, which many of you may not even know about, which is that we failed so spectacularly in so many ways to like correctly resource limit.
I disagree. This is where I don't think that's true. So the reason we are obviously, we designed the server in a way that you can get XP incredibly easy, you can get diamond armor incredibly easy, and your barriers to conquest is very limited. So you can get into conquest really early, and you're not going to have to sit there and grind for 3 months before you can even take part. So you know, either way with that stuff, we're going to have to make it fairly accessible if it's inherently the best. That's just the way it is.
Well, and again, Magpie and I had this exact conversation, and I clarified the same with him, which is that I don't really mean I'm excited to restrict netherite. I'm excited to restrict everything else, which is pretty cool stuff. Building, mobs, all these crazy nether stuff. Like, those are the things that Loka was intended to be something where you join a server, you settle on the continent, now you've realized that you're somewhat resource limited, and in earlier days you could still kind of cheese your way around getting everything you needed. Of course we fixed a lot of that since then, but netherite, if netherite's meant to be the only way to conquest, which I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, it's hard to say, but we're not going to make it something that like we can't let the barrier to entry be higher for conquest, because the whole point of Loka is exactly what Magpie said. But
as I said, we'll cross the bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, it's the first snapshot of 1.16. It's not out yet, and we reserve that. There's a reason we don't really talk a lot about new patches until they come out, is because Mojang is not exactly yeah, they're not the vanguard of game balance. They're pretty great, not great at it. And
So
so
one last thing of like NPC towns, I think it's the clarification of the previous question. I mean, I tentatively say yes, effectively. That's the idea of expanding islands around continents and adding new islands without having to add whole new worlds like the Nether and End. We may add new worlds as well further down the line, but like initially, using islands around the continents frees us up to, if we want to build small NPC towns, villages, large bustling cities, if we've got the manpower to help us with that. Yeah, we'd totally be able to do that. And they kind of act as mini hubs, I suppose, as well. Some of them.
we also have a lot. I mean, even without creating a new island, I think that we could easily say that they'll create. Okay, there's a sort of an NPC town dock on all resource islands, all three of them, and they all have their own subset of quests. We could easily do that. We've begun to set ourselves up for that kind of thing in the future.
So getting a bit off topic, but I will answer it. Is if there was an influx of players, new continents, and RIs ? Basically, our resource isles, something we haven't gotten around to yet, but something we do want to do is basically effectively make them instanced in the sense that each player sees the ores, and once they break the ore is still available for everybody else. So
y'all know how
ores as a whole.
Y'all know how daily docks block. Yeah, it's daily dock blocks, but on the scale of the entire resource island. So everybody goes to the resource island and individually has the whole resource island to mine themselves. It doesn't matter if somebody's been there in the last 3 hours or whatever. Like you get the whole thing to yourself.
We'd have to reduce the number of ores there,
of course.
but you wouldn't have to worry that somebody's already been, I'm out of luck or whatever. So basically that's infinitely scaling at that point. I mean, obviously there's the PvP issue, and if they are so contested, because people are there PvPing all the time, then we'd look at new areas and islands around the continents that work similarly. In terms of whole new giant continents, I mean, I would say Loka's current 3-continent system can support a hell of a lot of players. But again, if we hit a point where we feel people are too cramped, there's a town on every tile kind of state, then we'd look at it. But
it's always a question of whether we needed to do it. Yeah, it was a question of whether we needed to make a new continent versus whether we wanted to. And we've never needed to do it, and that was always going to be the impetus. I always said there's two things that would force a new continent. Either we grow immensely and it's required, or Mojang finally comes out with a content in a way that it begets a new island. But the Nether isn't one of those, frankly. It's a lot of new content, but it's not, for our sakes, not a continent where you can live worth of content. So
I'd also point out that at the point that we need a 4th continent, we would be running all the continents on different servers at that point, because
probably most likely
at that point. So, which is something that's incredibly difficult to do from a technical side, but it is possible, and it would be something.
Definitely thought to do it.
It's a way to future-proof ourselves effectively. That running every continent on its own server helps, prevent lag effectively, because whereas at the moment the whole of Loka is on the same box.
So since it's 8:55,
but they'd still be able to travel between them and everything. That's
yeah. So I think that's
what we need
to. I would say we got about 5 minutes before we should cut it.
Yep.
Cut it, or end it for the night. So if you have questions, the 18, 20 or some odd of you that are still watching, ask them now. We'll open up the PTS so you can play around a little bit. Mag, I'd say we should probably remove the 5 fake quest NPCs and stuff like that so people can come over. But what we want you to do is hit the PTS and try to act like you're going to make some quests. Just hammer on it. Try to break it as much as possible, because we need the most people possible banging on this stuff, breaking it, trying it, giving us feedback and all that stuff, so that when we release it, we've got the least amount of bugs possible. But yeah, if you got any questions, put them in Twitch chat real quick. We'll try to answer them. Otherwise, we'll see you on the PTS here in a little bit. If you're new, all you got to do is type /PTS, public tester, and you'll be able to join once we drop the whitelist, which we have not yet done, which we will do soon. But if you have any questions, I'll give you all like 2 or 3 minutes. Otherwise, we'll kill a stream. We'll post this VOD on YouTube for people like our EU folk who weren't around to watch. And yeah, and look forward to your feedback.
Yeah, in terms of giving feedback specifically, you can do dash report on PTS, and those reports will be kept separate from other reports. That's probably the best way to get stuff to us, whether it's suggestions, whether it's bugs, whatever. If you just do dash report while you're on PTS, that will work great.
Oh jeez, wow! I tried to type /report. Okay, use /report. Bugs, feedback, suggestions. Wow.
Also, something that some may not know is PTS is in no way linked to live, so if you lose stuff or gain stuff on PTS, it's completely separate.
Yeah, you can like /kit get a free thing and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's great. Yeah. So, okay, well, there's not, other than Pac saying this update's cool, which we agree and we're super excited about. I think we will call it a night. And thank you guys for sticking around. I know it's been quite a long stream, but there's a lot to talk about. We also, I think, maybe this a slight SOTS, but that's okay. So we will kill the stream, open up PTS again /PTS, try it in about 1 minute, and we'll see you on the PTS. And hope you guys like this update. So cheers, and we'll see you guys later.
Latest.